Hey guys, we'll give it a few minutes so everyone can join, and then we're going to go into the wonderful and magical world of film projection. If you have questions, comment while we're doing this, and I'll stop talking here and there so I can address them. Yeah. How is it looking so far? Do we have anybody?
I don't know, we're still waiting for some folks to join. Let's
Okay.
take a look. All right, somebody's on here. We hope all of you guys are still staying safe at home and doing what you can during the closure. Thanks for joining us here at the Byrd. We're going to go into more detail with Damien, just a quick look through the booth. All right. So some folks, I think, are logging in.
All right, so hi, I'm Damien Champ. I'm the head projectionist here at the Byrd Theatre. I've been here 11 years, and I was very lucky to train under Bill Enos, who was the head projectionist before me, who had been here since 1986. Yeah, so stepping in, this is the projection booth up here on the 4th floor of the Byrd, and this is the Brenograph F7. It is a dual glass slide projector and effects projector. So essentially, you have a projector up here, and then you have a second projector down here. And back in the day, a lot of people, this is how you would run advertisements for local companies. Let's see, how's it? There we go.
And it's inversed, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when
it's inverted.
Inverted.
So right now, that's how it gets put into the machine, the Brenograph. From there, the light filters through, and it goes here to this iris. So if I pull this open, the iris opens. At that point, the image is projected onto two mirrors to invert the image properly, much like the human eye, and then goes out onto the screen. If you've seen a movie here in the last 92 years, if you've seen the Byrd logo on screen, this is what projects it. We don't really use the bottom one as much, but the interesting thing is that the irises are chain linked together. So as I'm closing the top, the bottom opens, so you can actually do crossfade effects. And so back in the day, what would happen is you would put, for example, go over here to the board. These are where we'd store our slides, and say grab like an Elwood Thompson's. There we go. Can you see that on there?
Yeah.
And then maybe later in that night, you'd grab a Godfrey's. And that was a thing. And so you'd load one into the top and the other one to the bottom, and you'd crossfade. And as the one that was closed, you'd go ahead and pull that out and slide the next slide in. So hopefully you had a lot of ads going on to help revenue and whatnot. But I feel for the person that had to continuously swap them out every 15 seconds or so. So if you turn around,
So
this, yeah?
we do have a question.
Sure.
Brad wants to know, what is the current light source for the Brennographs?
So hi Brad, originally everything in the booth was carbon arc. At this point, everything has been updated to bulb based. So now that that's cooling down, we can open that up.
And can you explain the difference between carbon arc and a bulb that
Sure.
we're using now?
So carbon arc was basically almost like a welding stick that ignited through electricity, and that was what would cause the illumination to put your projection on the screen. That's what your light source would be. If you look up here on the ceiling, there's this paper with the 2 black marks on it. If you guys at home can see that. And when we had carbon arc, it would cast a shadow on the ceiling, and when it got to that black line, that's when we would know that it was time to change the rod. But it's been updated and moving on to bulb-based, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the 35 millimeter projectors. We're getting a brighter source out of this guy, and it's easier to maintain. And they stopped making carbon rods as well. At the end there, you could still get them, but they weren't very good, high quality. And so the light source was a little bit more finicky. Anybody else? Perfect. All right, so here behind me, this is the Dolby CP650. It's our digital sound processor. So when we're running movies, whether it's DCP or Blu-ray or a digital file, all the sound comes to this guy, and it converts it to whatever format it needs to be in. So we have mono, we have stereo, we have 5.1, we have 7.1 here at the Byrd. A lot of people don't realize this, but our sound system was actually donated to us by Mr. Dolby himself. He and his assistant were here taking a tour of the facility, and as they were leaving, he leaned over to his assistant and said, we need to get a sound system and donate it to these people. So our sound system literally came out of Mr. Dolby's personal screening room. So for about 2 years, packages would arrive, and different components of the sound system would come. And then at the end of the 2 years, once all the pieces were here, he actually sent his engineers to install everything. And then once that was installed, we worked with the French Film Festival and the Cannes Film Festival technical team from the CST. And so every year, the head projectionists of Cannes and myself go through the entire auditorium and calibrate the theater's visual and audio setup to Cannes Film Festival specifications. But yeah, that's the workhorse of our sound system there. So coming down here, this is our 35 millimeter projector, and we have 2, so we have a proper changeover system. The bases are original, which is all of this.
When you say original, is that to 1928?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, these are originally the ones that were originally installed. Now, if you don't know, back in 1928 or the 1900s, etc., sound used to be generated by a Vitaphone, and it was basically a record player that the operator would try and sync up with the film, and hopefully it was not too far out of sync. But so this platform here is where the motor for the Vitaphone record player used to be. And then the Vitaphone used to be mounted back here, and it's a really, really thick record, and it had 40 boxes on it. And after each time you ran a movie, you'd have to mark a box, and after 40 film runs, you'd have to discard it. I was at the Cinémathèque de France in Paris, and they were showing me these records, and they're quite heavy, but because the records at that time were, the needles were so heavy, they wear through the records very, very quickly. And then we move up. So again, original bases, and you can use all of this to adjust the imaging and the throw of the projector. These bodies are not the originals. These were upgraded in the 2000s, and that's when we went from carbon arc to xenon. If you haven't seen a light bulb for a projector, oh, it's actually, let me check and see if the other side's open. Yeah. So I'll get a light here. There we go. So this is the projector bulb, and it gets very hot, and it can be quite dangerous. There's a lot of pressure inside there when it's heated up. If you've stopped by our display case down in the lobby, I have one down there that we've depressurized that you can look at a little bit closer. Yeah, Billinos. Yep.
Do you know how bright one of those bulbs is? How many lumens?
These are 3,000 watts.
3,000 watts.
Yeah.
Wow.
Were there other questions?
How old the system is. So I know you said that our base is original, 1928. This is celebrating 92 years old, and then.
Yeah, this was upgraded in the 2000s, I believe 2005 or so. And yeah, Bill Enos helped install this, and because he used to be the head projectionist here who trained me. So yeah, this is the lamp house, and then this is the projector head. And so for example, we have a flat lens here, which is 185. So if we're running a square film, to break it down, this would be the lens that we use for it. And then I can open this up, and this is the film path for the 35mm film. I'll go ahead and thread this up so you guys can see what it used to be like.
And what's the bell that we're hearing there?
So that bell is called the changeover bell, and it's weight triggered. So basically what would happen is, as the film's running, if you have a movie running, as we start to get closer to the end of the film, on that reel, that would ring 3 times to let the projectionist know the changeover was coming soon. And that way you can get ready. And they're adjustable, again, by weight. So as the weight starts to decrease, then it'll give you a little bell there.
How long between the bell and the changeover do you have?
About 45 seconds. That's typically what Bill and I calibrated everything to be. That gives you enough time for a heads up, but not enough time to worry yourself to death. So if you've seen Fight Club, you've seen the scene with the cigarette burns, where Tyler Durden's talking about the cigarette burns. That used to drive Bill nuts because that's not what those are actually called. They're actually called motor cues and changeover cues. So if you're watching old films before digital restoration came into place, you'd see a blip in the top right-hand corner of the film every so often. And there'd be 2 sets. So the first one would be to start the motor. And then 8 seconds later, the second film cue would come, and then you'd hit this foot switch down here to do the actual changeover. Switch from projector 1 to projector 2, or projector 2 to projector 3, depending on how long the movie is. But the 35mm projectors here are still functional. We still keep them up and running. We are actually supposed to run 2 35mm prints this year for the French Film Festival, but unfortunately, due to everything that's happened, we weren't able to do that. But they are going to bring them back next year, so we will 100% be running 2 35mm prints for the French Film Festival here next year, if not some other fun stuff that we have in store throughout the year.
And can you talk a little bit about why the film industry changed over from 35mm
Sure.
to digital?
Absolutely. So 35mm is amazing. I love it. That's what I started working here on. Every single screening was 35mm. We had a digital screening maybe once a month. The downside of 35 millimeter though is that if you have handlers or operators or projectionists, all the same thing depending on who you're working with and what title they have. It all depends on how well the film is handled. And because we're second run, by the time we would get film, a lot of it was less than optimal. I remember Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series, when we were running that, number 7, part 1, I think it took 6 prints that they had to ship before we got one that was acceptable, because the film prints looked like they had run through a lawnmower, because they get caught in the teeth of the film path here. And, you know, as films were coming to an end for first run, you know, the operators, some of them didn't really care, so they wouldn't treat the film that great.
This is the teeth right here.
Yeah, here and here, and then here, and just in all the sprockets. I mean, even up here. But the other thing is, it's really, really heavy. Here, I'll show you. Let's see. So when I first started, film used to come in this. This would be half a movie usually, and it'd be about 40 pounds. So if you got 2 of them, and it was always better to have 2, and that way you were, the weight was distributed, and you could walk up 4 flights of stairs easier, as opposed to pulling to one side. I remember when I first started, I was joking with Bill Enos, and I said, you know, as old as this place is, you'd think we'd have a dumbwaiter. And he said, well, we do. And I said, well, I haven't seen it. Where is it? And he goes, well, I'm looking at it just fine, because I was the new guy, so I was tasked with bringing the film up. But yeah, this is a container that, and you can see it says Hollywood Film Company. But this is what they would send out. Every film would come in, usually 2 of these, and then I would have to lug them up to the 4th floor of the projection booth and then test them. And then, as I was saying, Harry Potter 7 part 1, I got to do this 6 times. Because again, there would be 6 cans. But so now a film comes in, and it looks like this. It's 3 pounds, and my back and my shoulders are much happier. But yeah, that's a hard drive for a film now.
And so now these are digital cinema packages, right?
Yeah,
DCPs.
Yeah, DCPs, and this is a movie we were supposed to run called The Gentleman, and our friends over to the Ashland Theater were kind enough to send this to us. And so these are all films. But going back to why we switched over, so if you have these 70 pounds for 2 of these, and you have to ship them overnight, because film would usually come in on Thursdays, and we would start our shows on Fridays. So for example, that Harry Potter film I was talking about, if they had to send 6 versions of it overnight at 70 pounds each, that adds up fast because they're shipping it overnight air. Also, because operators, some people were trained and some people were a little bit more loose with how they ran film. Depending on what theater you went to, you would have a different experience, because the operator might be a little bit better here or a little bit looser over here. And while that does add for an organic film going experience, once you switched over to DCP, it kind of took a lot of guesswork out of the act of showing film. Because the first time you run it, it's going to look the exact same as the 300th time you run it. Whereas with film, if you're not handling it properly, within a week you'll start noticing degradation, noise, artifacts and things like that in the print, where it's picking up dirt and potentially scratches as it's going through that film path I was talking about earlier. What else we got?
Well, how does that hard drive get loaded in? Because you showed us the film path
Sure.
for 35 millimeters. So
So-
what's the new digital film path?
So if you've seen Ghostbusters, it's very much like Ghostbusters. So you take the hard drive out, and you slide it right here. As Raging Bull. But yeah, so you take the gentleman here and slide it in, lock it into place. Right now our server's off because we haven't been using it, but normally that would light up, and then up here we have a control interface that I can select the DCP file from and start loading that. For a movie, for a 2-hour movie, if we're not running something on screen, if we're just loading it by itself, it takes roughly 30 minutes to load. And then it will go through a verification process. And at that point, Technicolor and Deluxe will send over a KDM, which is a key delivery media, which will unlock the film for us to show. Without that key, we can't open the film to unlock it to run it for people. So then on Thursday nights, a lot of times what I do is I make sure all the films are loaded, I go through and make sure we have all the keys, and then I'll go to the key properties and say, okay, we're starting it tomorrow and we're running it for 2 weeks. Is the key open for that amount of time? And if it's not, the film will become unavailable to run when the key runs out, and that's not good at all. But yeah, sure. Real quick, this is our digital projector. So when I first started, we had a different digital projector. We had a Barco DP100, and that's the one that I was saying that we used maybe once a month for special events. Now at this point, we use this every single day, and this is the upgrade to that because the old one died several years ago. We went to do a special event, and the thing electrocuted itself, and we couldn't have our special event that night. But we did a lot of research, and we came up with this. It's the Barco DP32B. It's a 4K digital projector. So reiterating what I was saying earlier, we have 4K capabilities and a 7.1 or 5.1 surround sound system. We can also do stereo and mono, just for anyone that tuned in late. And then what happens is I go in here and I program all the different macros for the aspect ratios. So for example, like we were showing with the lens over there, that was 185 flat. So I'll program a 185 flat for Blu-ray, for DCPs, for pretty much any input that we can think of. I'll also program 178, which is 16 by 9, which is a standard TV. Like when you watch a movie and it says this has been formatted to fit your screen, it's usually been formatted into 17. 16 by 9, 178 rather. So we go through and program all the individual things that we could potentially need, because especially with film festivals, the 48-Hour Film Project, the French Film Festival, Richmond International Film Festival, Environmental Film Festival, James River Film Festival, the Pocahontas Reframe Film Festival, all the big ones that we do, they have so many submissions that come from all over the place, and we need to make sure that we have the proper aspect ratio to run their films in. Otherwise, image area will be cut off, and we won't be able to screen it the way the director intended it for it to be viewed. So we take that really, really seriously.
And I think that, we could say, like, you are paying attention to all of that. And if anybody's going to a chain movie theater, there's not an individual Damien Champ who is in the booth to monitor that. So
yeah, unfortunately, the art of projection is fading, and a lot of chain theaters have a assistant manager / projectionist that kind of straddles the line of knowing a little bit about both, but not a lot about either. So, if you're at a theater that doesn't have a designated projectionist, you might notice that the masking is off, or the sound is a little loud or quiet, and that's because no one's actually went into the room before the movie and calibrated it. So that's one thing that I do is Thursdays when I come in to test everything, I literally go sit in the audience downstairs, and I have a decibel meter, and we rate everything roughly to be around 85 dB, which is this kind of the standard that you want the volume to be, and that way it's an enjoyable experience without potentially causing hearing damage. But at a lot of these other theaters, they don't have someone on site. So when you say, "Oh, this theater, this speaker sounds like it might be blown," you know, a projection isn't going to come out and run out and fix it. They're going to call their technical guy that's off-site usually, and they'll come in at a later point and try and fix that. Whereas here, our team is set up to repair things on site as they happen. But again, we're a special circumstance because we have a marriage of so many different types of technologies from across the decades. So yeah, this is our follow spot here. And if you ever presented at the Byrd, usually this is what I use to light you up so the audience can see you. Or if you've been around on a Saturday night to watch the organ show, this is what I use to illuminate Bob Gullich.
Right down there?
Yeah, right there.
So speaking of lights and illumination.
Sure.
So, all right, so we're looking out here at the auditorium, and I think anybody who's been here has seen that we have thousands and thousands of lights and beautiful chandeliers. So can you talk to us a little bit about that system?
Absolutely. So this is our Westinghouse lighting control board. This controls all of the lights out in the auditorium. I am a big fan of when you come to see a movie, the building should morph to whatever the capacity of that film is going to be. You know, I think the music should change. I think the lighting should change, all to represent what you're about to see. I think that makes it really special. Much like artwork, you know, great art is wonderful, but a great frame makes it that much better. And I feel like my job and our job here at the Byrd is to offer a very unique frame for artwork to be seen and films to be seen within. So this looks massive and it looks very daunting to some of you. It's really not. It's mirrored into 4 sections. So this is the A section here. You have the B section, the C section, and the D section. So A is what was referred to as the miscellaneous section, or the white section. B is the blue section. C is the red section, and D is our amber section. Everything mirrors everything from each section. So you have the blue crystal chandelier here, the amber crystal chandelier here, the red chandelier here, the green chandelier here, etc., and they all mimic each other. So, for example, like if you've seen the organ play Phantom of the Opera, Bob played Phantom of the Opera on the organ, you know, you might notice that I use a lot more red at certain times, but then I'll start bringing in amber halfway through the song before I do the big drop out at the end, where I kill everything light-wise in the room minus the red for that dramatic effect.
And why are you choosing red for Phantom of the Opera?
It just seems to fit. You know, it's interesting. So we'll have all the lights up entirely, and I will play with some of the amber colors to go along with Bob's crescendo. And I have it set up so that by putting these down, when I drop the Grand Master, every other light in the auditorium will go out minus the red section now. So I originally started doing that, A, because it's a really fun dramatic effect, but it also grabs people's attention. Because, you know, as you do when you're waiting to see a movie, you know, you might be talking or just zoning out, or, you know, watching the organ, of course, but when you drop those lights, it's suddenly a very like, oh, what just happened? And then you look around and everything is red, and it takes a second, but then you start realizing, oh, this is a special effect now. It's part of the show. This is okay. And then a few years after that, I started projecting an image of the Phantom of the Opera up onto the screen behind Bob. Again, to further, because it was like, well, this is fun. Let's see how far we can make this go. I think one year we actually put strobe lights in the main chandelier. So when we were running the Phantom of the Opera in October, during the chandelier scene, we killed all the house lights in the image on screen and had the strobe lights going off in the chandelier for effect for a few seconds. But yeah, I mean, I think it's very important that the building should reflect the artwork that's being portrayed within it. Were there any more questions?
So we have a question here. Brian Bailey wants to know how you got the gig here. Did you go to school for it?
So, Brian Bailey, you just cracked open a can of worms. I was actually having a drink in a bar, and one of the bartenders was an assistant manager here at the time named Catherine, and I was joking that I might go look for jobs tomorrow. And she said, well, you know, one of our projectionists might be leaving. He was furloughed from the Air Force, and so he's been picking up gigs at the Byrd as a projectionist for the last year and a half, but I think he's moving to New Mexico, and we might be hiring someone. And I said, oh, well, that's funny, because that's actually on my list of top 5 dream jobs. At this point, I had no projection experience at all, just a love of film and movies. So they said, yeah, well, go by Saturday and go up to the projection booth and meet Bill. I said, okay. So I came up and met Bill, and we were running Avatar, the film Avatar at that time. And so he said, well, you've never been here before, because I just moved here. And he said, well, go sit out in the balcony and watch the organ show, and then you can come back tomorrow and you can sit with me and shadow me and see if this is something you might be interested in getting into. So I came back, and I got here really, really early because I wanted to impress him, and he got here really, really late. And while I was waiting, one of the other assistant managers came up and handed me a time card and said, hey, fill this out, you forgot to clock in. Everyone, this is our new projectionist. And so 11 years later, I'm still here, and you know, unfortunately at this point, Bill had passed away back in 2014. But so I took over as head projectionist, and yeah, I try and implement as many of the things that he has taught me over the years into the daily workings of the projection booth as well as the auditorium. And so now I'm here, and I've been extremely fortunate to work with directors like Steven Spielberg when we ran Lincoln and War Horse here. I've run film premieres for David Lynch. I've run 35mm film for Crispin Glover. You know, I'm really fortunate to have fallen into the position that I'm in, and to be able to have worked with as many amazing artists and creators and directors that I have. Anything else?
Who is your favorite director to work with?
Oh, God.
And why?
Well, it all depends. You know, Steven Spielberg's team is amazing. I love those guys because they're just so professional, and they're serious, but they're so laid back. David Lynch is a very specific person, and he has, you know, he wants things to be a certain way. So, you know, you got to make sure that his film is a little bit louder. There are actually notes, projectionist notes for Mulholland Drive that he sent out notes to all the projectionists when that film first came out on 35mm, asking for specific aspect ratio changes and shifts to make him happy. Oh, gesundheit.
Danke.
And yeah, Crispin's a trip. He's a sweet human being, and we both bonded over etiquette books, because we both love etiquette. But It was interesting. The last time he was here, he brought his film in a suitcase and projection booth about 25 minutes before showtime, which doesn't give me a lot of time to prep. But we got it up here, and upon opening it, he realized that he had shipped himself the wrong film. In his series, he shipped, I believe, the second one instead of the first one. But we made do with that, and then we had a 4-hour Q&A afterwards, and a 4-hour signing, and we walked out of the building at 4 a.m. Yeah, sure. So we're gonna take 2 more questions.
Yeah. What is the weirdest thing in the booth, or your favorite kind of odd and end that you can share here that might make the Byrd unique and different from any other spaces?
All right, here's an interesting thing. So originally, projection booths, when they were built, film was made of nitrate. Nitrate is very explosive. If you've seen the movie Inglourious Basterds, you're aware of this. Bill used to have nitrate film up here that he lighted, and when he would bring guests up, he would take a piece about this big and light it on fire, just to show how fast it goes up. And at this point, we've run out of it because we like lighting film on fire from time to time.
So we can say that we have exploded all the nitrate film.
Yes.
That has, okay, so there's no more nitrate to explode in the Byrd.
Yeah, not in the Byrd. But it's unique because with that in mind, by law, most projection booths had to have 2 exits, and this one only has 1, which is down that way. It's a really long, narrow projection booth. And with that said, there's a room underneath of us that's like a rewind room. And back in the day, it used to have to be, per union law, that they had 3 operators. You had to have an operator running the film. You had to have a guy to run the film from the operator down to that rewind room, and then you had a guy in that room to rewind it and put it in a protected metal container as fast as possible to reduce the chances of film explosions. So yeah, that's a weird thing because we only have the 1 door, so I think they forgot about me on this side. What else do we got?
So some folks have been curious whether or not there have been supernatural activities.
Oh yeah,
here in the projection booth.
I died in 1823, and I've been here ever since. No.
You look good.
Thank you.
You still look good, right?
Well, you keep the shape when you die as a young guy. No,
it's a really good filter on this Facebook Live video, actually.
So yeah, it's interesting. So there's lots of stories about ghosts here. A little girl playing ball in the downstairs women room, I believe. There was a gentleman that passed away from a heart attack during one of the screenings way long decades ago. And when I first started, Bill told me that, I'll just show you. So we'll go over here. So when you go to do a changeover with 35mm film, what happens is you have these portholes here, that way you can see out. So you'll get in this position, you'll hover your foot over the changeover switch. This is the dowser to open the dowser to allow light to come from the lighthouse through the film. And then this is the switch to turn the motor on. So when you're getting ready to do a changeover, you'll do this. But you have these port glass windows here, and when you open the booth, the door to the projection booth, the air pressure from outside and inside equalizes, and you'll get a little. And he was saying that every projectionist that works here has been waiting to do a changeover, and he would hear that, and then he would feel someone walk behind him, and he just assumed it was one of the other projectionists, and it wasn't. So that's something he reported. I've never personally had that happen to me directly, but I'm an extreme workaholic. If you know me, you know I'm here 500 hours a week. And I think if there are ghosts here, they've just realized at this point, like, I'm very, very busy, and I'm trying to work. so I don't get messed with. But lots of other projectionists have said something about ghosts and paranormal activity. But so we're going to wrap up. If you have any other questions, comment in the video or comment on the Byrd's Facebook page. Or if you have questions for me directly, you can email me. My email is D as in Damien Champ, so dchamp at byrdtheatre.org, and I'll be happy to answer whatever. And also, I don't know, did we get the donate button working at all?
I think it's posted, but
Okay. So yeah, there might be a donate button on there. Obviously, at this point, all the theaters across America are shut down due to this horrible pandemic. And in the downtime, we are doing maintenance and cleaning throughout the theater. And you know, just trying to stay chugging along until we can reopen. But if you have a few extra dollars, or if you want to buy a gift card, etc., you know, we would be very grateful for any of that. And if you want to see more stuff like this, more tours, etc., virtually, you know, that's something that we can probably arrange as well. And then once we reopen, maybe it's the type of thing where, you know, we can have a few tours come up to the booth, and so you can actually put your hands on some equipment and you know, see what I've been talking about, yammering about for the last 30 minutes. But yeah, if you have questions, shoot them over, and if you have the resources, hit the donate button, and thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you at the movies.
thanks. Bye.